Time for one last race in the 2025 Euroformula Open Championship here at the Temple of Speed. The 8th and final meeting of the season after yesterday's truly epic encounter with a photo finish. Timothy Kaharczyk and Jevon David separated by a single thousandth of a second at the checkered flag to crown the Polish driver the 2025 champion, giving BVM their first title in the Euroformula Open Championship as well. The question remains, what more does this fantastic series have in store for us with one more 16-lap race to come? Chris Stevens and George Morgan up here in the commentary box. George, have you gotten over yesterday yet? Because I'm still in disbelief.
I think we're all stunned, Chris, but largely for good reason. And a big warm welcome to one and all of you tuning in live. And I hope you have looked back and reviewed yesterday's race. What a corker it was indeed. Take nothing away from Jevon David. It was a mighty effort on his part to try and rescue the championship in a bid to survive for at least one more day to perhaps even lift the title aloft against this man, Timothy Kaharczyk, who was just simply too good, defended masterfully, also managed to counteract some of the moves that were being made on him in turn. Last of the late breakers coming into the Retofino chicane as well at the same time. A worthy champion, breaking the hoodoo of last year's GB3 campaign. He's arrived here at the Euroformula Open Championship, becoming a Polish Euroformula Open champion as well alike, providing Giuseppe Mazzotti's BVM team with their first championship in this series in their history. Of course, they've had loads of success elsewhere, but certainly a landmark moment for the Italian outfit on home soil as well at the same time, which I'm sure will mean oh so much. And they can now enjoy this final race, which is certainly the very plan that Timothy Kaharczyk had actually outlaid and intended when he arrived coming into practice on Friday.
There was an awful lot of celebrations in the BVM garage last night with Matteo Tirananzi, Timothy's engineer, Giuseppe Mazzotti, of course, and Timothy's father getting in on the celebrations. Even Francesco Simonazzi paid a visit into his old team's garage to join in the moment where Timothy crossed the line and was crowned champion. But one more race still to come here this morning. It is. It feels weird to be racing on a Sunday morning for the final race, accommodating the schedule for this weekend.
Usually we have two races on the Sunday,
yes.
So it's a little bit different. We have two races instead on the Saturday, because obviously we have the GT Open 500 race on Sunday, so it's kind of conflicted with the standard schedule because races have been moved around. But it does mean we can enjoy one last dance in 2025 with obviously the championships concluded. We had the excitement of yesterday. Today's more of a formality, but the drivers, I'm sure, are looking to close out the campaign in style.
It is a little bit. Obviously, the overall championship, we mentioned Jevon David claiming the rookie championship yesterday. Team Motorpark coming away with the team's championship, despite some fierce competition from BVM and Nielsen Racing. And we understand this will be the last race of the Nielsen Racing name in this championship, with Sven's single-seater branch of the team rebranding next year. So we look forward to seeing news on that front. But it is two BVM cars inside the top three for this one, with Alessandro Famularo, who qualified 6th yesterday. It's the top 6 qualifying order reversed for this final race of the weekend. Enzo Ye starting on the second row of the grid, though. He has been in a very rich vein of form lately. Bearing in mind, this is only his second weekend in the championship. I don't think we've seen his full potential yet, George.
No, and he obviously took a little bit of time to get used to the Dallara 324 chassis, largely, obviously moving off from the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine car, which is, of course, the alternate manufacturer. Here is, though, Alessandro Famularo, the 22-year-old from Caracas, Venezuela, because comes in from Italian F4 competition and also ADAC F4 at the same time. Jose Garfias, who had a very action-packed day yesterday, and I would like to say for the right reasons, but unfortunately, largely towards the very end, it led to bitter dismay. We move back to P3's Rui Hengyer, also known as Enzo Ye, having a bit of a field day. Best qualifying performance as well to open up Saturday at the same time, and it was a grand effort on his part. He qualifies ahead for this one off the back of the reverse quali positions that we are taking on board for this race 3. Michael Shin, who also had a tough day yesterday as well, Chris, a retirement at the same location coming into the Roger chicane.
Yeah, Yeah, it was bouncing over the top of Enzo Ye's car, which was obviously not good for his championship hopes. Probably looking to secure third or try and secure second in the championship. But there is the champion, the man of the moment, Timothy Kaharczyk. This is the man he beat by a single thousandth of a second yesterday. Honestly, if you have not watched back yesterday's race, go and do it, because it is everything that junior single-seater racing should be about.
I think everyone unanimously says it was the greatest finish in Euroformula Open history. And bear in mind, it's a long storied history. We've had many great Formula One drivers come through, including current ones that are on the grid. Fernando Barrichello with Father Rubens alongside him as well. He's committed to FIA F3 next season. Everett Stack, who in my view has also been one of the stars of the show this week. Phenomenal display to take a victory in our first race, and a brilliant P3 as well yesterday too.
And only 700ths away from making it back-to-back victories yesterday as well. He was part of that epic photo finish, and we hope he'll be back for a second year in the campaign. Of course, for many of these drivers, this is the final race in this championship. We know that Michael Shin, Yevon David and Fernando Barrichello are all moving on to FIA Formula 3 for next year. Many other drivers branching off into other categories as well. Young Ed Pearson, his race didn't go much further than turn 1 yesterday. He'll be testing Nielsen's LMP2 car on Tuesday in Portimao. They've just wrapped up their European Le Mans Series campaign. And speaking of ELMS, you might know this man's father, Georgios Kolovos. It's his son, Taxiarchis, who has made his single-seater debut here this weekend, lining up at the back of the grid. So 12 cars and 16 laps of racing to come. This is what's happened so far in the weekend. It was Yevon David with a sensational pole lap. He led in the early stages in the first race of the weekend. Michael Shin fought his way past Timothy Kaharczyk for second place into the second chicane. And then things started to get a little bit dicey with Jose Garfias running off the road in his bid to take the lead of the race. That was the moment Michael Shin and Enzo Ye came together. Yevon David spun round by Jose Garfias. The Mexican would take a grid penalty for that one. But it was Everett Stack who shone through to take his second career win in the Euroformula Open Championship. Yevon David limped home to bag reverse grid pole. He started from the front again with Alessandro Familaro getting a very difficult start, and then dramas right from the get-go. Pearson and Barrichello making contact. Familaro off the road. Kaharczyk squeezing Michael Shin and his motorpark teammate Jose Garfias at the second chicane as well. No quarter was drawn there, but this was the epic finale. On the final lap, Yevon David squeezing through to take the lead. It had already changed hand 3 times at this point. That is what 1,000th of a second looks like at the checkered flag, and it crowned Timothy Kaharczyk the champion of 2025. So going into this final round, it's a 38-point lead for Kaharczyk over Yevon David. Michael Shin does have an opportunity to try and seal second in the championship here. Jose Garfias in fourth with Ed Pearson in 5th position. Everett Stack gaining more and more confidence there in 6th position in the championship. The final race of 2025 about to get underway. It's Alessandro Familaro who starts from reverse grid pole, and it's Jose Garfias alongside him, and then Enzo Ye in the second of the BVM cars alongside Michael Shin. On the third row of the grid, the champion of 2025, Timothy Kaharczyk, goes from 5th ahead of Yevon David. Fernando Barrichello in 7th, and race 1 winner Everett Stack goes from 8th. Diego Della Torre goes from 9th on the grid ahead of Luca Visceranu, Ed Pearson and Taxiarchis Kolovos rounding out the grid. Unfortunately, all 3 of the Nielsen cars starting at the back of the grid, and that is owing to a penalty for Ed Pearson, I believe, after his contact at the start of race 2 yesterday afternoon. Formation lap again, about to get underway, but 2 BVM cars starting inside the top 3. Of course, this is a relatively recent venture, them having 3 cars on the grid, only second weekend for them. But Familaro will be hoping his start goes a little bit better than it did yesterday. Yeah, it was just a slightly slow getaway, really, from the other side of the grid. Obviously, it's roles reversed this time around. Obviously, if you remember correctly, it was Yevon David on pole position for yesterday's reverse race, which, you know, we kind of thought could yet help him out in terms of landing that championship. Very near, well,
at least to extend the progress into the championship coming into the third race of the weekend. But ultimately, it wasn't to be. Famolaro, though, with a great chance to once again right the wrong in his own right, looking to close out the championship in better style this time. And obviously, being on pole position, it does give you that extra benefit of having that clear air in front, but you need to get off properly. We know that drivers have struggled with the carbon clutch in the past. This man did, certainly at the start of the season. How different the championship may have looked. Could have closed out perhaps a little sooner had Kaharczyk actually managed to land some of those lights to flag victories that he could have obtained had the clutch issue not been a problem. But now back with us again as champion here ahead of race 3 of the weekend. What is Enzo Yair going to do? Is this going to be his breakthrough standout moment? Highest rookie inside this 12-car classification grid, and his nearest competitor in the rookie standing is, of course, Yevon David down in 6th. But Rui hanging out with a great chance on the second row. The Type A driver will be alongside Michael Shin. Of course, the Korean will meet him every which way coming down towards turn 1, and you can bet your bottom dollar that Shin will have a point to prove after certainly suffering in the way that he has done in the last 2 races here at Monza.
Contact with Enzo Yair in race 1 and then being squeezed between Kaharczyk and Garfias in race 2. It's been a bit of a weekend to forget so far for Michael Shin. Wants to end on a high, going off to Formula 3 with High-Tech, where Yevon David and Fernando Barrichello move into Formula 3 with the AIX squad, which is going to have a all Euroformula alumni lineup alongside Brad Benavides next year in Formula 3 on the F1 support bill. Of course, we await news for other drivers. Timmy Kaharczyk will be doing the Macau Grand Prix in a couple of months' time with the Van Amersfoort squad. We'll see where that leads him. And conversations amongst many of the other drivers about whether they're going to go higher up the single-seater ladder, try racing on different continents, try different forms of racing. Either way, Euroformula, once again, providing the goods to give these drivers the opportunities to make a career in racing. Young Alessandro Famolaro, the 22-year-old Venezuelan, making his way to the reverse grid spot. Been a difficult weekend for Alessandro so far, hoping to end on a high here. There's Matteo Tirananzi, Timic's engineer on the right-hand side, next to Giuseppe Mizzotti, the BVM team owner. One of his former F4 drivers actually engineering Alessandro Famolaro's car. It's Gastone Sampieri. So a bit of a hold as there's a long while waiting for Stack and the 3 Nielsen cars at the back of the grid to join up here, keeping us waiting. Famolaro has been sat on that pole position slot for quite some time now. The temperature bleeding away from the Pirelli tyres, but the green flag now waved at the back. The lights are on, the engine notes rise, and for the final time in 2025, we are racing. Good start for Jose Garfias, pounces into the lead, stall for Enzo Yair there, who doesn't get away at all. Garfias straight into the lead of the race, and Kaharczyk storming through to take second place, up from 5th on the grid, but he's got Michael Shin on the inside. The South Korean pounces into the Rettifilio, very, very tight. They did make contact into the second apex, but they might have gotten away with it. No, they didn't, because Michael Shin into the gravel when he's down at the rear of the field.
Yeah, Michael Shin, disappointing start. Also disappointing starts for Tax Archer's Kolovos, and also at the same time, we saw Rui Heng stalling right at the very start. The BVM car stricken on the grid as now we watch Jose Garfias take the lead of the race with Timmy Kaharczyk, champion, of course, this campaign, now up into second ahead of Alessandro Famolaro. BVM currently sat 2 and 3 is now Yevon David, of course, championship competitor yesterday, trying to land a blow to extend the title race through to race 3. It certainly hasn't happened. There's Enzo Yair. He's back underway to kick off his race at Monza for a 3rd time.
Garfias leading by a few car lengths out of Lesmo 2, safe from any attack from Timmy Kaharczyk. We'll wait to see any news from the steward's office about that turn to contact. Famolaro defending to the inside for 3rd position with Yevon David trying to pounce on him. He doesn't want to let that top 2 get away, does he? Because this is kind of pack racing, really. It's Everett Stack who's emerged in 5th position there as well. So he's made up 3 places on this opening lap so far. Side by side again for 3rd position with Famolaro defending to the inside. And we know how much Everett Stack loves that move on the inside at the Alboreto curve. He's doing it again on Yevon David here for 4th position. Didn't quite pan out in his favour, though. He's got to be careful because he's got Diego Della Torre right in his wheel tracks as well. So as they go across the line for the first time, it's a quarter of a second, 3/4 of a second. Garfias leads by over Timothy Kahacek. Yevon David through into third position now. Out-drags the BVM racing car of Alessandro Familaro, who tries to take it back on the outside into the Rettifilio. Big lock-up, though, for Yevon David. I think it was. A couple of cars went straight over the chicane, and it was Fernando Barrichello who had a big moment through there. And judging by the dust on the right-hand side, maybe even got onto the grass.
Yeah, Diego Della Torre also, I think, took a pretty big chunk of that chicane and found himself alongside all of a sudden of those runners that are currently duking it out over P3 right now. Yevon David going defensive to the inside as now Familaro also looks. It's side by side though between Diego Della Torre and also Everett Stackers. Now cutting the chicane goes Familaro. He'll probably get in trouble for that. Have to give the place back to Yevon David, I would imagine. There is Barrichello now, who also came back out onto the circuit after cutting that chicane of the Rogier at the same time. Let's have a replay of the start. Again, much like yesterday, Kahacek had to respond to Familaro almost stopping on the grid. This time he had to do the same for Enzo. Yeah, yet another BVM car that stalled in front of him, but he managed it well.
Great start it was, and just driving straight through the middle. We're going to see the contact here, so it's going to be front right against the left rear.
He's fortunate that suspension held.
I was just going to say, I mean, they build them strong, don't they, at Dallara? Because that could have done an awful lot more damage. And unfortunately for Michael Shin, it's another tumultuous race here. Everett Stack trying to make the move for fourth position on Alessandro Familaro into the Alboreto curve. Gets that one done, so Familaro's yielded the places that he gained by cutting the chicane earlier in the lap, and here comes Diego Della Torre as well. Yeah,
side by side with Familaro looking to follow suit with what we've just witnessed from Everett Stack. Familaro cuts back across in front of the nose of Della Torre, who swaps again to the inside, or is he going to remain in behind Familaro this time? Familaro goes now to the inside, as now we have a battle now for the leaders. Now Garfias forfeits it to Timothy Kahacek. Kahacek taking the fastest lap after our last visit around the course. Another car taking to the escape road. I think that might have been Della Torre on that occasion as they come through Curva Grande. There's Della Torre now. He is behind Everett Stack, so Stack up to fourth. Once again, having a good race is the man from the United States, as now Kahacek leading a race for the second time this weekend, bidding to become a race winner as Della Torre gets confirmed past Familaro into fifth place.
Great stuff from Kahacek once again. He's got so much confidence under braking for the Rettifilio chicane. We saw it time and time again yesterday, and we've seen it again in this one on only the third lap of racing here. Kahacek moves from fifth position and into the lead of the race. It was a bit of gravel being kicked up there, I think probably by Ed Pearson. That's going to leave him vulnerable to his teammate Luca Visciarano. Joins the Nielsen squad from Motor Park after filling in for Fernando Barrichello, who was making his Formula 3 debut here while we were racing at the Red Bull Ring a few weeks ago. And yeah, it is Visciarano who's managed to get that move done. And Michael Shin looking to pounce as well.
Yeah, he had the run, didn't he? Visciarano, after the mistake from Pearson, led him into the gravel, and now Michael Shin wants a piece of the Pearson pie here this time as he comes down through towards the Curva Alboreto. Inside line here for the Korean. Yeah, well, it looks like it must be tasty. He's made use of it. He's moved through now into P8 as Michael Shin. The recovery drive is on, but certainly a long way to go to be in contest for this race win. Currently it's in the hands of Timothy Kahacek, but for how much longer? Now being joined by the Mexican Jose Garfias, who moves up the inside, and just like Kahacek did to him a lap or so ago, this time it's Garfias who launches himself back into the race lead as now Visciarano, Pearson and Barrichello come together. Barrichello not quite able to get the move done, but Shin has moved up and past Visciarano into P7.
And Everett Stack has gone past Yevon David for third position as well. And the gap between those two battling groups is very quickly closing as well. Pretty soon it will be 5 for the lead with Della Torre right in there as well. So this is what we mean by pack racing. We love racing at Monza, and these cars are absolutely brilliant for it. Stick in the toe, figure out where you're going to be. If you've ever watched, low-level Grand Prix motorcycle racing, it's all about figuring things out, where you've got the advantage, where you can make maneuvers, and then playing whatever hand you've got in the last 2 laps of the race. Absolutely brilliant stuff as Garfias takes the lead back again, going for his 4th victory of the season. An outside championship contender throughout the season, but has been finding more form as the season goes on. We're awaiting news on what he's going to be doing in 2026. We don't think he'll be sticking around for a second full campaign. Of course, he did a half campaign last year. Look at those 5 cars making their way through the Alboreto curve. Motorpark leading BVM. Motorpark inside the top 3. So back across the line then to complete the 4th lap of racing here, and Yevon David is the first one who pulls out to the outside, trying to take 3rd position back, and he's got the double slipstream from the leaders as well, which is helping him along. Kahacek pulls out to the inside, and for the 3rd consecutive lap, the lead changes hands once again.
Yeah, the pole back on top. Garfius now forced to remain in 2nd, but Yevon David pulling out all the moves too to move back into 3rd, so now all of a sudden, the swaps continue, and Everett Stack now with company, as he's being met by Diego Della Torre, who still currently has the fastest lap of the race right now, 0.3 of a second. In fact, he did it on the last lap after a purple first sector. They're going to go side by side on the run down through towards the Roger, or are they? Just a little bit of a nose to the outside from Della Torre. As now Kahacek comes through. Barrichello has got past Ed Pearson for P9 as well, so now he's behind Visharano, who's currently sat in 8th, but 1.7 seconds behind Familaro right now, who still operates around in 7th place, joining Michael Shin, who's in 6th, and crucially enough, 2.6 away. Let's have a look at this slow-mo, as now we see the cars making their way through the Rettifilio chicane. There is Yevon David, fresh after making the move on Everett Stack, with Diego Della Torre still very much there. 2 Mexican drivers currently inside the top 5. As it stands, Garfius going for that 4th victory, like you so rightly said, Chris. He hasn't had one, though, crucially enough, since Paul Ricard race 3, and that was the last one on a string of 3 rounds with at least 1 victory apiece.
1 3/4 seconds separating the top 5 cars, and I'll tell you what, Michael Shin, he's going to be in this as well, because he is setting purple sector, which has gone fastest in the middle sector. So he has got some real speed, and pretty soon it could be 6 for the lead. And we're not even at half race distance yet. Let's see what happens into the Rettifilio this time. Top 3 have been able to gap Stack and Della Torre ever so slightly. Yevon David, I'm sure, wanted to make something of a maneuver, and this time it's Kahacek who successfully defends the place.
Had a lovely run coming out of the Rettifilio as well at the same time. Really nicely done from Kahacek. He's been so smart on the brakes coming through the Rettifilio all weekend long. Michael Shimon now with the fastest lap of the race as well has done a great job bringing the delta down by around 0.8 of a second already, as now Garfius comes back in for a move now around the outside, coming through the Rogier, committed though to the inside. Kahacek defends well again. Yevon David having to take some sort of evasive action, therefore to prevent moving into the back of Garfius in his rear diffuser, and Stack down in 4th, also had to pull up onto the brakes a little bit, with Della Torre also very much in the mix, but Kahacek controlling the race thus far.
Yeah, Shin was more than a second quicker than Diego Della Torre last time around, so he is hauling himself onto the back of this lead train of cars, and I think bringing with him the pole sitter, Alessandro Familaro, as well. But it's Kahacek who still holds a car length and a bit over Jose Garfias going into Ascari. Yevon David in 3rd, Everett Stack trying to make it 3 podiums in 3 races here. So car number 3, which is Timothy Kahacek. He's been given a 5-second penalty for the start incident with Michael Shin. Interesting.
There must have been something we didn't see there.
Well, yeah, so they've deemed Timic to be the cause of Michael Shin's off in that turn 2 incident. So that's, well, at the moment, that would drop him to 7th position. Extraordinary. Here comes Garfias again around the outside and gets squeezed off and has to take to the escape road. Now, I'm sure that the message is going to be coming through from Matteo Zieliger, it is, on the other end of his radio, not Steve Colbert, as he normally has for this weekend, that don't bother with Timic too much because he's got a 5-second penalty, but then at the same time, he wants to put cars between himself and his rivals. Yeah,
there's still benefits here for Garfias if he can stick Timic Kahacek in between himself and Yevon David. Obviously, David is the bigger concern because he can obviously, well, he's going to be the other driver, the next driver in line to be in a battle for the race win as a consequence of Kahacek's 5-second time penalty. So, at this stage, it is right now Kahacek in front, but only on track. Bear in mind, when that 5 seconds comes around as the checkered flag gets waved, he will not be holding on to it should the time gap remain as it is right now, minute as we look at it. They come down through towards Ascari. You can see Garfias just waiting in the wings. Obviously, I'm sure we'll harbour no qualms about making a move later on. We still have plenty of laps to go. 10 remain as they storm out of Ascari once more. The Sri Lankan Lion, Yevon David with Everett Stack for company. Michael Shin has done a great job of really bringing himself back into the fray, just 2 tenths away from breaking into the second gap that will obviously exist in between him and Diego Della Torre once he exits out of Curva Alboreto. And then bomb down the long straight. Kaharczyk will have company. Garfias, the Mexican, now already looking to open up the throttle, as is Yevon David, who wants to try and ensure that he is the one that can land an effective blow here to Kaharczyk in what could be a reprieve and also redemption against the man that beats him to the punch to win the title. Here comes Garfias now, taking the outside line, coming through the Rettifilio. Kaharczyk to the inside, covers it off, but it got oh so tight coming into the first corner apex of the Rettifilio chicane. But Kaharczyk hangs on, and Garfias now left at the mercy of Yevon David.
Yevon David with great momentum, trying to find the inside line at Curva Grande, but Garfias chops across the bright yellow nose of the Sri Lankan Lions car, and now to the outside, Timmick defending there as well. The problem all these guys in the middle have got is they're trying to attack and defend at the same time, and it's very difficult to judge if you're moving in reaction to someone else or if you're trying to just pounce on the car in front of you. Side by side there with Everett Stack having to keep Diego Della Torre at bay, and the Virginian getting very tail happy. But look who's arrived on the scene now. Enter Michael Shin. It's 6 for the lead now as we approach half race distance.
Yeah, and obviously Shin with a point to prove after 2 very difficult races yesterday. He knows that the third one could provide something special, but he still has a lot of work to do. It's not enough just to close the gap. He needs to make places, and if I was Diego Della Torre right now, I'll be looking all over my mirrors, because I'm sure that green-nosed Motorpark Dallara 324 is going to be swarming all over him right now, like an angry hornet, as they come down in towards the final corner. And indeed, another look this time from Michael Shin as he looks to now move up inside the top 5. He's going to try and encounter his teammates, have the better run coming out of the final corner. Stellar stuff from Shin, but it's not over yet, because Diego Della Torre will be in his wheel tracks and may yet return the serve on the way down through towards turn 1. He looks to the right, now to the left. A very quick use of movement there from Diego Della Torre's back comes Kaharczyk and Garfias once more, renewing their fight to the Rettifilio. Again, locking up is Kaharczyk. Shin managing to retain that P5 as well. Della Torre had no response on that occasion. Shin doing a masterful job.
Important move there for Michael Shin, straight onto the back of Della Torre, straight into second place. Yevon David again with great momentum out of the Rettifilio around the Curva Grande, but again Garfias defends it, and Kaharczyk again defending to the inside, and it all seems very late and all seems very aggressive in the defence, but the status quo being maintained.
Della Torre has got Shin again, managed to move back through, coming through the Rogia.
And they've fallen off the back of Everett Stack now. That could be crucial. They need the top 4 to start squabbling to help them get back onto the train, otherwise they'll fall into the clutches of Familaro and Barrichello, who's there in 8th position and closing in as well. So, back down the Seraglio and into Ascari. Still Timmick Kaharczyk, who holds the advantage and has done for some time now, after a few exchanges in the earlier stages of this race. Let's see if Everett Stack can throw his hat into the ring in this one. He's been very punchy on the brakes into the Alboreto curve, been making a few moves into there over the course of the weekend. We've seen him do it once already in this race. And as I said earlier, going for his 3rd consecutive podium finish this weekend. Out of the Alboreto curve. Let's see what the gap is between Kaharczyk and Garfias this time around. Only 3.5 tenths of a second, as once again, the young Mexican in the wheel tracks of the BVM car and pulls out to the outside towards the Rettifilio. This time he's got a little bit more of momentum. Kaharczyk locks up, but this time Garfias doesn't get forced off the road and brilliantly takes the lead.
I have to say that was immense confidence from Garfias to pull that off, and now Kaharczyk at the mercy of Yevon David. These two are going to meet again coming through Curva Grande. The question is, will Yevon David exercise his right to move, or will Kaharczyk go back to the lead this time around? In front now by a nose on Garfias and firmly placing himself back in front, and David forced to renew his view of the rear diffuser on Jose Garfias' Dallara 324.
It's going to be very familiar to him by the end of this race, I'm sure. not one he's going to want on his back patio, I'm sure. But
he'll be able to sketch it for you.
Yeah, absolutely. This has done wonders for Della Torre and Michael Shin, because we're back with a 6-car train for the lead. Michael Shin still at the rear of that train, though. Hasn't been able to get back around Diego Della Torre. And we know he's got some immense pace, because remember, he was in the gravel on the very first lap of the race at turn 2 after contact with Timothy Kahacek. Remember, he's still carrying that 5-second penalty. So he's got to try and break away, otherwise he's going to end up way down in the lower edges of the top 10.
I think if you're Timothy Kahacek, you're relieved you got the job done, really, in race 2,
Pretty
obviously.
much, yeah.
Because this could have been curtains, really, if the championship went this long. But Kahacek giving us a show, nonetheless, showing us exactly why he is the 2025 Euroformula Open champion. We've seen many an occasion where he's gone late on the brakes, and he has had to, because the slipstream, oh so powerful, down this long straight here at the Temple of Speed. And it is exactly that. Religious ground here for motorsport fans and drivers alike, as now Garfius looks to return himself to the front, and it's 3 wide now with Yevon David looking to pursue greater positions this time. Unfortunately unable to do it, but Garfius, try as he might, he's going to make his way through. They were wheel to wheel, and Garfius back in front, and Yevon David looking to pounce, finally looking to place himself into second. He yearns for it, he gets it. The Sri Lankan line continues to roar. A look to the outside, getting squeezed onto the grass. Back comes Timothy Kahacek onto the grass as they now make their way down towards the Rogier. The pole returns again and punches back against Jose Garfius. Cracking driving between these three.
How does he keep doing this? It's unbelievable racecraft. And do you know what is the best thing about this, George? No DRS, no push to pass, just raw racecraft. This is what kids need to be learning in the junior single-seater classifications, and they are learning it right here. Euroformula is the place to be in 2026.
Beethoven himself couldn't script anything better than that. That was astonishing, Shakespeare-esque from Timothy Kahacek. Absolutely mighty, coming through the Rogier chicane. He leads the way again. Garfius in second place. And pursuing them as well, Yevon David still 0.6 of a second between the top 3 as it stands. Michael Shin going for glory as well on Diego Della Torre. Rizino backs out of it. Of course, he's already met Diego Della Torre around Curva Alboreto. Let's take a look at this moment again. This was astonishing. I mean, Timothy Kahacek, this just goes to show what the course of this season has brought to him. A renewed confidence and a clap from Giuseppe Mazzotti. He is a huge fan of this young man.
It's hard to stop Matteo smiling, even at the worst of times, but that really was a beamer, wasn't it? Here comes Garfius again. It's 5 laps to go. Another lock-up from Kahacek, but he holds the advantage. One of them going straight over the chicane. Was that Della Torre? I think it was. So Della Torre straight line in this chicane, comes out ahead of Stack. But here comes Garfius again. Is he going to repay the favour of Timothy Kahacek this time with an outside manoeuvre at Della Rogier, squeezing him over to the inside line, and Garfius goes back through into the lead of the race. And Yevon David must be thinking, what have I got to do to get amongst these two?
Well, he's been part of it, largely. I mean, we saw that massive 3-way tussle coming out of the Retta video. Of course, he was unlucky, actually, because he didn't have the line, really, in order to maintain his place in P2. Kahacek just snapped his fingers off, really.
Kahacek through the gravel. That's going to be an open opportunity, surely, for Yevon David to take second place, and even potentially an opportunity for Garfius to start putting some distance between himself and the chasing pack. Here comes Yevon David, and before they even get to the braking zone of Ascari, he's through. Kahacek looks up big time, and through the gravel again. Surely he's got dust on his tyres from that first trip through the gravel, and now everything's starting to come undone. Look at the advantage that the top 2 have got now. They've surely got to start breaking away. A little wiggle there from Timmy. Has he got a problem, I wonder? Something at the rear end. We'll see as he goes along, but Everett Stack right behind him, Michael Shin and Della Torre as well. Let's see if Kahacek can hang on to this one. We're about to see Yevon David pop through, and how close does he get to the rear end of Yevon David? Pretty close.
Does very well to at least keep the car in some way, shape or form in a straight line. But restores himself, battle for the lead.
Here comes Yevon David, not quite able to do it down there, but Kahacek's being swallowed up by the pack because through has gone Stack and Shin, and Della Torre trying to go around the outside as well. He goes across the chicane. Michael Shin with a big oversteer moment, very nearly replicating his race 1 incident, this time against Everett Stack. So it's the Virginian who comes out on top in that battle pack, 3 abreast behind him. Don't know where to look, George. It's unbelievable stuff. On board with Kahacek again. And Michael Shin with the toe of Everett Stack and very nearly contact with his sparring partner of this year as well. But it's Stack who comes out in fourth position. No, third. Third it is now.
Well, that was what you call threading the needle, folks. Right in between two cars that were near enough side by side, but Shin picking the narrowest of margins to confirm his place just behind Everett Stack in fourth. Still carries the fastest lap of the race as well. Shin with a point to prove. Currently sat down in fourth with Stack in front of him, obviously chasing that P3 podium. That might be the best at this stage that he is going to obtain here, at least somewhat a podium finish if he can.
They're 3 seconds now behind the leaders with 3 and a bit laps to go. It'd be a miracle now for Stack to get onto the back of David and Garfias. They'd have to be knocking 7 bells out of each other over the last few laps of this race in order for that to happen. So then there were 2 with 3 laps to go then. Yevon David, who's been denied victory once already this weekend by the narrowest of margins, and he won't want to be denied again as he lines up his teammate down the start and finish straight to the outside. He goes, and there'll be a battle on the brakes going into the Rettifilio chicane. He doesn't need the brakes, he's already ahead, but Garfias is going to come back on the inside. He's got some confidence down there as well, and Garfias hangs on to it. Looks like Everett Stack just about holding on to third position ahead of Michael Shin as Famolaro straight lines the chicane, and Barrichello takes a little bit of gravel on the exit as well with a nice little slide there, and Kahacek trying to regain some of those places. It was an overheating engine for him in race 1 that hampered his progress. I wonder if he's got similar issues now or any other problems, because this race has very quickly come undone for the man who was crowned champion yesterday afternoon.
Well, we saw that wiggle earlier on after Ascari, whether there is maybe some balance issues on the car after that, maybe the suspension not behaving as it perhaps should. But so far he's continuing, so obviously he feels he can carry on. Coming through the second, Lesmo going to give chase now after Michael Shin still, as they storm down. Famolaro going into the gravel on the outset of Lesmo too, and that's certainly not going to help his tyres, getting a little more of the Timet Kahacek treatment. Obviously he went off at that very same escape, allowing Yevon David to move through. Of course, now David in the lead of the race, ahead of Garfias at the moment by 0.2 of a second. And Stack, 2.4 back, is looking to try and regain and hold on to his P3.
Yeah, he's just pulled a second over Garfias and David. Faster than anyone in the middle sector. And with 2 laps to go, it may not be totally over yet, mightn't it? Kahacek taking 4th position away from Michael Shin into the Alboreto curve, but he's now falling off the back of Everett Stack as well. So 2 more laps to go then, and where is this one going to pan out? Yevon David ahead of Jose Garfias now. And will it stay that way going into the Rettifilio? David defends to the inside, Garfias to the outside, chooses not to fight that one, so settles back in behind. Interesting. This is where we're going to start to see the cards that they have being played.
Yeah, we're on the penultimate lap of the race, everyone. 2 to go. And Kahacek back ahead of Michael Shin into 4th, trying to close back to the rear of Everett Stack in a bid to at least on track put himself on a podium position. But obviously, as we all know, the 5-second time penalty is going to intervene as we take a high-rise shot.
Oy.
My goodness me, that was Diego Della Torre moving across onto the off-track. Barrichello did exactly the same as well, and as a consequence, has actually gained a place on Della Torre. Of course, I'd imagine he'll have to give the place back, though both cars went off wide, though.
So Della Torre took the prescribed route through the runoff area. Barrichello did not. Oh, who's just kicked up an awful lot of gravel there?
Now the gap looks close.
Was that the race leader? And Everett Stack has pulled 2 seconds back on
there
these
he
guys.
is.
He's well in this for the final lap. David's trying to pull the plug, trying to pull the pin a little bit, but Garfias is straight back in there with that toe. And so I'm not discounting Everett Stack here on this final lap. He is hauling onto the back. The gap now just 1 second. Remember, it was 3.5 seconds just a couple of laps ago, and he's bringing Kahacek with him. But remember, Kahacek and that white BVM car has a 5-second time penalty, and yeah, Barrichello's going to be given the got to give the place back to Diego Della Torre because he didn't take the correct route through the runoff area. 1 lap remains in the 2025 Euroformula Open Championship. Yevon David leads by just half a second over the line, and it's the fastest lap of the race, done though by Fernando Barrichello. That'll be because he cut the chicane. Garfias closing up. Here comes Kahacek trying to take 3rd position away from Everett Stack into the Rettifilio. Can't do anything with that though. Status quo maintained as they come out of the first chicane. for the final time, but Garfias is closing, and Gahacek is doing the same on Everett Stack as well. When we get down into the De La Rogia, this could be the crucial moment to determine the final race winner of the season. Garfias, there we can see, pulls out to the outside, squeezing Yevon David, but David just about holds on. It's closing up immensely now between Stack and Gahacek, as well as Garfias and Yevon David, who still leads going through the Lesmos.
Yeah, cracking effort there from David just to swarm off and prevent Garfias from having any advantage at that very moment. All of a sudden, everyone is constrained together. The gaps that we had prior, a lap or two ago, they've shrunk, they've gone, they've disappeared. It is now David, Garfias, Stack. We've got one final run down the Seraglio Straight and then a run through Ascari. Yevon David, the Sri Lankan Lion, looking to end his season in style after losing the title yesterday. This will be a bittersweet moment, but I'm sure will be a much yearned victory that I'm sure will go down well in amongst the Sri Lankan fan base and at the main sports bar.
Yevon David watching the mirrors. Where is Jose Garfias? Late defense. Here comes Everett Stack. Nearly 3 wide into the Alboreto curve. And surely it's not going to be another photo finish. Garfias almost off the circuit. He loses it through the final corner, and that is going to give Yevon David clear road ahead to take victory in the final race of the 2025 Euroformula Open Championship. Everett Stack takes second place by just 0.02 of a second to Timit Gahacek. He will lose that podium, though, with the 5-second penalty, and that will hand it to Michael Shin, who will end the season on the rostrum.
Yeah, after a very difficult first 2 races for Michael Shin, he will be relieved that it has finally gone his way. Yevon David, back at pastures that began his Euroformula Open career. Back last year, this time he was twice over a race winner. And much like last year, he's a winner of race 3 as well. That's 3 victories at Monza if you conjoin last year and this year. And it's a welcome return to the top. Marco issuing his congratulations to Yevon's father. The family are all here this weekend celebrating as they hope to take the title. It was a mighty ask, though. But Yevon David, the first thing he said to us, we gave you a show. They certainly did, these drivers. They have given us a phenomenal show right through the course of the campaign. The marshals even giving them a round of applause. Take us through the classification, Chris.
Yevon David ends the season with victory in race 3 of the Euroformula Open Championship. Just 0.4 of a second over Everett Stack and Michael Shin, who completes the rostrum. Jose Garfias battling for the lead, but only 4th in the end after that last corner moment, ahead of Diego Della Torre, Fernando Barrichello, and Timit Gahacek, after his 5-second time penalty, is classified 7th ahead of Alessandro Familaro, Ed Pearson, and Enzo Ye completing the top 10. Luca Viscerano and Taxiarchis Kolovos were the last 2 cars across the line in 11th and 12th. But my goodness me, what a weekend of racing we have here. The final classification in the Drivers' Championship, a 17-point lead for Timit Gahacek over Yevon David. Michael Shin, 45 back in 3rd position. Jose Garfias and Ed Pearson, meaning Nielsen Racing in their first year here in the championship, put a car inside the top 5 of the Drivers' Championship. An awful lot for Sven Thompson's team to be incredibly proud of. And for almost every driver on the grid, an awful lot to be proud of here. We know that a lot of these guys are moving up to Formula 3 next year. Do us proud, boys, because you've put on a heck of a show this year.
Monza has provided us with a fantastic grand finale. With that win, Yevon David joins Timit Gahacek on the highest number of wins. 6 for Gahacek, 6 for Yevon David, and that just illustrates how close this championship fight truly was. We were gifted an almighty race yesterday, another exciting race today. But as Yevon David, in his chariot of gold and blue, representing his home nation of Sri Lanka, will now peel in and take his spot behind the #1 banner, and will be joined by teammate Michael Shin, as well as teammate Everett Stack, a blanket motor park podium. And a big roar as well from family and connections, the team engineers as well, that put so much work and so much effort into producing great drivers for the Euroformula Open Championship. We talk about former champions as well: Felipe Drugovich, Harrison Scott, Leonardo Polcini, Sandy Stuvik, Cameron Dass, Oliver Goethe, Noel Leon, Brad Benavides. Yevon David, though. Oh, bit of a slip. But there we go, he rescues it. The Sri Lankan Lion roars again here at Monza. Runner-up to the title, 6 wins, joint highest number of wins this season too, and celebrates with his family, connections, and engineers. Well done, Sri Lanka.
Very nearly a Connor Zeilish moment there, but got away with it. You see Giovanni Scala in the background there, just congratulating Yevon David. That's his final race in the Euroformula Open Championship with the Motorpark team as well. We wish Giovanni all the best as well. A friend to the commentary team. Great weekend here for Everett Stack. He does make it 3 podiums in 3 races here at Monza. And this young kid is growing in an awful lot of confidence.
We compare him to where we saw him at the start of the season. Chalk and cheese, Chris, ultimately. And it's been a voyage of progression. If you have a look at his results, largely everything has come late in the day. It all stemmed from that first race win, largely as well at Red Bull Ring. Points gained as well. Several podiums, kicking things off really at Hungaroring, where things really got good for him. Came away with 15 points after a P3 on that occasion. Obviously elsewhere, other points were garnered. Several 4th place finishes. I think he was on the verge. Garfius giving him a little pat on the back as well at the same time. Obviously, those two gave us an almighty duel in the latter stages of that race. But Yevon David, he had to get something out of this weekend, and it finally has come his way. Magical race number 3 produced him the goods. A victor here once again at Monza, and his 6th win of the season as well. And he is, of course, we can't forget this, the rookie champion.
Yeah, it's been a spectacular effort and a heck of a championship fight throughout the year. Michael Shin ends the 2025 campaign with a podium finish, an epic recovery drive from being in the gravel on the first lap of racing here for Team Motorpark. Everett Stack, a 3rd podium in as many races here at Monza for the young Virginian. He ends the weekend in 2nd place, but the winner for the 6th time this season, ending 2025 on a high, the Sri Lankan Lion, Yevon David. Let's hear from him.
Yevon David, a beautiful way to finish the season.
Yeah, I mean, a win for the last race of the season. Honestly, today was so emotional. I woke up and realized it's my last day with Motorpark, and I thanked the team. I said, let's give it one go. And, well, crazy race still, because, I mean...
Another one.
Yeah, still side by side for the last corner, but this time sealed it in the end, so really good.
And your season, okay, you came close to the title, but great campaign.
I mean, even though we didn't get the result we wanted, we're vice champion, and regardless of the result, I think I'm very happy with the way we executed. I've transformed so much as a driver, as a human, and I have to dedicate this to everyone that supported me, you know, everyone that helped me this year, my family. It's been a great season, so very happy and super excited for next year.
Well done. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Epic way to conclude the 2025 Euroformula Open Championship. It was Jose Garfias who got the whole shot from pole sitter Alessandro Famolaro, with Michael Shin making a big dive on the inside, but contact with Timit Kaharczyk. The pole would take a 5-second time penalty, with Michael Shin going through the gravel and having to recover. Big dices all the way through the field, with Yevon David charging his way up the order. And then battle commenced between Garfias and Kaharczyk for the lead of the race. That changed hands several times over the course of the race. Yevon David threw his hat into the ring, having made his way up into 3rd position. Garfias with an excellent move to take the lead away from Kaharczyk, that also allowed Yevon David to move through into 2nd. But move of the season potentially from Timit Kaharczyk on the grass, on the outside, into the lead. Garfias gave it as good as he got, going back into the lead laps later. But then a moment through the gravel for Kaharczyk saw Yevon David go through, and then very nearly contact between the 2nd and 3rd place drivers. More dramas through the chicane, several having to take to the escape road. Michael Shin very nearly replicating his race 1 incident against Everett Stack. On the final lap of the race, it was Jose Garfias trying to take the place from Yevon David. He couldn't do it, he ran off the road, and Yevon David made it a 6th victory of the season, ending his campaign before he heads to Formula 3 on a high. And so now to the final podium of the season. Michael Shin getting very familiar with the sights of the rostrum. And the same could be said for Everett Stack as well, as he racks up more podium finishes. The young Virginian only had 3 podium finishes before this weekend. He's collected 3 in 1 weekend now. But for the 6th time this season, Yevon David on the top step of the podium. Remarkable stuff. Once again, what a way to end the season here as Michael Shin collects yet another trophy.
Podium number 12 for Michael Shin, and his third position as well at the same time. Obviously, probably would have wanted more here this weekend at Monza. Jesus Pereira, CEO of GT Sport Organisation, providing Everett Stack with his second place trophy of the campaign. And largely, I think we can expect more from young Everett in the future. Definitely has been a learned year as Yevon David lifts his final Euroformula Open winning trophy aloft.
I'm very much looking forward to seeing what happens with Yevon and Michael. They're both on their way to Formula 3 with Fernando Barrichello as well. Motorpark teams champions for this year, and picking up another team's representative trophy. And then finally the rookie class trophy for Yevon David, which he sealed with great aplomb. Mark the calendars, folks. April 18th, 2026 in Portimao, a new chapter in the Euroformula Open Championship. But from George Morgan, myself, Chris Stevens, and all of us here at GT Sport, thank you very much for watching.